Speaking of President Trump, last night he posted on social media a photograph of him and First Lady Melania Trump in formal attire, next to a photograph of you and your wife. You appear to be in a restaurant booth or something. Your wife is a psychiatrist. She's wearing a hijab. The caption was "Two very different Americas." What was your response when you saw that?
Yeah, he's right. One in which your overlords are two people who don't like each other but joint in the interest of making billions of dollars off of you, or two people who genuinely love each other, enjoyed some pancakes together, want to come together to build the kind of America where they can raise a family and know that that family is going to have the good things. So yes, you got two different visions of America. Donald Trump's vision is the one you're living in right now. Can you afford your gas? Can you afford your groceries? Do you believe, when you look your kids in the eye, that they're going to have a better future than you did? And Sarah and I are running because when we look our daughters in the eye, Amelie and Sirine, we want them to believe that they're every bit as able to have a better future than the one that they could have had under the Trump administration, that they can live together with their sisters and their brothers in America in a way where they lock arms to build the good things that they deserve together, where they know they'll have the health care that they need and good jobs, and that they don't have to go 15 minutes and know that there are kids who live 15 minutes away whose lives are very, very different than theirs because we've been for far too long okay with a level of inequality in this country. I want them to live in an America where they can breathe clean air and drink clean water. And actually, Sarah and I like each other. I don't know about the First Lady and the President, but from what I've heard, it's a bit of a rocky road.
You just watched President Neckpussy get his cheeks clapped on national television by Michigan Senate candidate Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. And I just want to put that post back up on the screen really quickly so we can bask in just how stupid and racist it really is. Because on the left side, you have Donald Trump's middle initial abbreviated, but on the right side, you have Abdul's full legal name, Abdul Rahman Mohammed El-Sayed. I wonder why he's doing that. It's the same thing that he does to Obama. Instead of just saying Obama, he says his full name, Barack Hussein Obama, emphasizing the Hussein, sometimes in all caps, to virtue signal to racist white voters that, this individual doesn't have a white-sounding name like you and me. Therefore, they are suspicious. But what's funny is that Trump clearly didn't anticipate how Abdul would effortlessly turn that attack back around on him and point out how Abdul and his wife, they're together because they love each other, whereas the same obviously can't be said for Melania. Because, do you mean to tell me that Melania was drawn to his narcissistic personality or was physically attracted to him? Nobody believes that. But these are things that people think about when Trump decides to say things like this. When you decide to attack somebody for who they're married to and attack their marriage. This isn't 2016 anymore, okay? We're not going to go high when they go low. We're going to go even lower. And Trump doesn't realize that he's too stupid to understand that the two different Americas line of attack can also easily be weaponized against him, albeit for other reasons. For example, you can show Trump partying it up with his rich Epstein-class buddies at Mar-a-Lago while average Americans struggle to afford gas and groceries. You can contrast the difference between Epstein-class pedophiles with regular pedophiles. Rich ones get away with their crimes, while the regular ones get prosecuted like they should be. Hell, there's even a disparity between Trump's neck and that of the average person. But, maybe that's what drew Melania to him in the first place. Perhaps it's a vocal sack that he can inflate like a frog to attract mates, and maybe Melania just couldn't resist that. Who's to say, really? But my point is that there's a variety of things that we can do to flip that attack back on him. And I don't think that Republicans get the fact that they're up against an entirely different beast. They're used to these limp-dicked, mealy-mouthed Democrats who would never stoop to their levels, but leftists actually understand that you have to respond to fascists in the only language that they understand, which is pure ruthlessness. And Oliver Larkin gave them a small taste of this in an interview on Fox News.
What is the number that is fine with you? Is there a benchmark? Is it fine? How many children can be raped and it's fine if you're in relation to the immigration community?
If we're going to talk about children being raped, then we need to hold this pedophile president, Donald Trump, accountable, and all those that have been implicated by the Epstein files that the Department of Justice is still not leaking. They've sent AIPAC after Thomas Massey for having the temerity to hold accountable the pedophiles that are in control of our government.
Thank you. We appreciate your time very much.
Sorry, sir. We are coincidentally out of time. Thanks for coming on. It's amazing. By the way, Oliver is running against a self-proclaimed DeSantis Democrat, Jared Moskowitz, in Florida's 23rd Congressional District, and you need to go vote for him next Tuesday if you want a Democrat who's actually going to challenge fascist Republicans and not collaborate with them. But to get back to Donald Trump's attack on Abdul, Republicans, they cannot really compete with Abdul on policy. We've talked about this before, so they're banking on Islamophobia exclusively, presumably, to get them across the finish line because they know it's at least going to encourage their own base to vote against Abdul. So they're hoping that other voters are going to be as stupid and small-minded as Republican voters are, because they are just that. In the 8th Congressional District of Michigan, Amir Hassan, the candidate that Trump literally endorsed, lost to a candidate that dropped out of the race because GOP voters refused to vote for a candidate with a scary Muslim-sounding name, even though he was a Christian. They just didn't want to take the chance, I guess. And they're so repelled by Muslim-sounding names because they hate Muslims so much that they instinctively booed a fallen police officer who was being honored at a Trump rally.
So I know Pastor Tice spoke about Officer Abdel Nabi a few moments ago. No, we're not booing. We're not booing him. He's the officer that passed away here recently. And I asked if we had a moment of silence, and he said we had not. So I would like your indulgence for a moment of silence for Officer Austin. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's easy to see why the Republican Party has become so rancid, because that's the people who they represent. A Politico poll found that MAGA Republicans in particular would stick with politicians in spite of all kinds of scandals. We're talking the worst of the worst. It doesn't matter if they've been accused of domestic abuse or sexual assault or corruption and outright fraud. A majority of MAGA voters would still support a candidate in spite of these scandals, because to these voters, a morally bankrupt, corrupt white Republican is still going to at least try to cleanse the country of immigrants and Muslims and trans people, which is all they really care about. But when it comes to Michigan, Mike Rogers is hoping that that same strategy is going to resonate with some of these same groups who are often targeted by the GOP's white supremacy, because as Politico reports, Mike Rogers is making a play for the Democratic coalition, ironically, by accusing El-Sayed of being bigoted. For example, he is accusing El-Sayed of anti-Semitism because, if you oppose Israel's genocide of Palestine, that automatically means that you're anti-Semitic, of course. They're also reaching out to black churches and black community leaders in Michigan since they supported Stevens in the primary. So I guess that they're hoping that these voters will vote for Mike Rogers out of spite because they hate El-Sayed so much. But in order to pull this off, they have to raise the salience of Islamophobia, specifically among Democratic voters, and get them to think that Abdul's religion is the greater threat to them than Republican fascism. And even though racism typically is a huge motivator for some voters, it's a tougher sell when you yourself are the victim of racism from this fascist Republican Party, and it's a tougher sell when fascists have taken over the country and wrecked the entire fucking economy, and it's an even harder sell when the candidate that they're fear-mongering against is offering voters transformative policies that'll improve their lives. Just listen to an attack ad that was released by the White House. If you replace the scary music with some patriotic theme, you would think that it was a pro-Abdul ad. Let me just play a snippet of this to show you what I mean. This is absolutely ridiculous.
I think the foundational issue here is we need to start taxing billionaire wealth, right? And when you tax billionaire wealth, you disincentivize the accumulation of wealth.
If you cannot stand for trans rights, do not be surprised when they come for your rights. I look forward to pushing forward legislation that would preempt localities from participating with ICE. We've also got to make sure that in this state, we are not discriminating by documentation status. Right now, if you're undocumented, you don't get access to a driver's license, so you're stuck. You don't get access to a lot of the basic things the state offers everybody else. And I think that's ridiculous. And so we've got to stop discriminating that way.
There is no reforming. There is no retraining. There is only abolishing ICE.
Fuck ICE.
How terrifying. Now, to be fair, they included other things like defund the police, which does scare uninformed voters. But if you play a 2-minute plus long ad, it was like 2 minutes 30 seconds, if I'm remembering correctly, and at least half of the time in this ad, they're saying things that a majority of voters agree with, you're kind of just doing an advertisement for that candidate. At a minimum, you're proving that they're not that bad. But At worst, you're advertising for that candidate. And even though I do fear that Islamophobia will resonate with some voters, including some Democrats, I'm hoping that we'll see an Obama-like effect where voters who usually wouldn't vote for a candidate that they're prejudiced against do so anyway because their material conditions have deteriorated to the point where they feel like they have no choice but to momentarily put aside their bigotry and support the candidate who wants to actually improve their lives. It also helps that El-Sayed is a very talented and charismatic speaker who's able to effortlessly swat aside their attacks. Case in point.
President Trump had this to say after your win this week. I'm going to play it, get your reaction on the other side. Take a look.
He doesn't love Israel. He doesn't love Jewish people. He hates them. He hates them with a passion that burns in his heart.
What's your reaction to that, Dr. El-Sayed?
I love and revere Judaism and the Jewish people. I believe they're a light unto the world. I grew up in a community that had a large Jewish population. I was so grateful to get to be invited to Seder and to Shul and to bar and bat mitzvahs. I'm really honored for what I learned and got to share with my Jewish sisters and brothers. But they are not the same as AIPAC in Israel. AIPAC is an organization that spent, $30 million to beat me so that they could have one more vote in the U.S. Senate to guarantee that our taxpayer dollars would be sent abroad to subsidize a foreign government's military to do the worst things: genocide, apartheid, take us into wars we have no business fighting. And I'm running for Senate here in Michigan. I believe that we have a responsibility here in Michigan. I want our tax dollars spent to provide good schools, to pay for health care, to rebuild our roads here in Michigan, rather than it being sent abroad to subsidize foreign militaries. That's not just Israel, by the way. That is also Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Pakistan. So I believe in international law. I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for all people. I believe in a process that allows a free Palestinian people and free Jewish Israeli people to come together around what they believe the ultimate peace should look like. And I believe that our tax dollars should be spent on the things that are needed here in Michigan rather than to subsidize foreign militaries abroad.
Listen, I don't care who you are. That is a very compelling message to the average person. You can also argue that it's an America First type of message that Donald Trump himself ran on. And part of what makes Abdul so skilled is his ability to co-opt Republican messaging and repurpose it to boost his own campaign. He did that when Hassan Piker came up for the millionth time.
When asked about Hassan Piker's comments on 9/11, Senator Bernie Sanders called it a dumb statement. Do you agree? Do you disavow those comments that America deserved 9/11?
Of course. Of course it was a dumb statement. And of course, I think Hassan himself would say that was a dumb statement. He disavowed it. So yes, America didn't deserve 9/11. But, to sit here and play gotcha politics with a dumb thing somebody said out of context that they disavowed themselves to say, oh, well, what does that mean about what you think? I want to be held accountable for what I say and what I do, rather than this idea that we're so stuck in cancel culture that all of us agreed was a bad idea back in 2020, but we seem to want to bring back.
That right there was masterful. Having said that, though, I will never not be salty about the fact that there's this hyperfixation on Hassan Piker. We have fascism that has taken hold in this country, and we're all worried about this one streamer. We're not going to talk about the fascist streamers who helped get us to this point. Nick Fuentes, Asmongold, they get a pass. Like, I'm not sure that I would want the mainstream media to cover them like they're a threat because they could inadvertently mainstream them. But I just don't know where this energy for Hassan is towards these other individuals. Steven Crowder literally just released a video making an affirmative case for fascism explicitly. And I don't expect any of these news anchors to ask politicians who's been on his show to disavow him. Ted Cruz has appeared on Steven Crowder's program multiple times. Tom Homan was on relatively recently. Are we going to see anybody say, hey, do you disavow this individual who's making a case for fascism? I get that Ted Cruz and Tom Homan are fascists themselves, but you're not supposed to admit that. So will there be this push to disavow Steven Crowder? Of course not. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter also that every Republican running for public office is openly fascistic and endorses the white supremacist great replacement conspiracy theory. It's only a scandal if a DSA-backed candidate tweeted to fund the police back in 2020. I'm fucking tired of the double standard, but thankfully Abdul El-Sayed is perfectly capable of defending himself. And as I've said before, this race really is the ultimate test on whether or not progressive policies can win in swing states and whether or not the American people has been fully lobotomized by capitalist media. Because think about it, this is the easiest decision voters have ever had to make. One candidate is offering them health care and a better life, and the other is offering them fuck all. offering literally nothing in terms of policy, aside from more of the same, more wars, more ICE terrorism. It is the easiest choice ever. So if voters reject Abdul El-Sayed, I'll be honest, my faith in the American people is never, ever going to be restored. I will forever be cynical if that happens. So let's actually be logical for once, America, and vote for the candidate who wants to improve things for us. Otherwise, we really have to stop complaining about how bad things are, because if we continuously reject the life vests that are being thrown to us, then it's our fault if we drown. So I guess I'm asking people to not be stupid for once.